Final Fantasy is such a huge success, and you cannot mention the genre RPG without thinking of the Final Fantasy series. Only a few selections of IPs have been such a success, with billions of copies sold and many different versions released on a variety of consoles. My name is Tony from the Classic League Gaming and Electronic Podcast, and today I'm reviewing Final Fantasy III for the iPhone and playing it today on the iPad. Now, it's challenging to provide fresh content for a review of a game that's already been touched on so much. So I'm going to stray outside the bounds of a normal review today and give you a little bit of backstory, followed by what makes the iPhone version unique, and show you a little bit of gameplay along the way. Now, Final Fantasy III was released originally in 1990 on the Famicom in Japan, and was never released outside of Japan until 2006, when a 3D polygon-heavy remake was released for the Nintendo DS. Now, the iPhone version is a spruced up port of the Nintendo DS game. Now, this was a game that US fans had been craving for a long time, so it's great that through the Nintendo DS and iOS port, we're finally able to play it. Final Fantasy III was the first in the series to sell over 1 million copies in Japan, establishing it as a flagship RPG series, and it was great to see a repeat performance when it was released for the DS in 2006. It also was the first in the series to have a job system that allowed characters to change classes at any time as well, and there are some other neat innovations for the time. So let's jump right to the story. You play a party of 4 youth that throughout the first part of the game come together and are drawn together by the Crystal of Light, and they're called by the crystal to restore peace and power to the world. Now, all the characters kind of leave their families behind as they set off on their journey together. And if you've not played through this story yet, you really need to. Now, I'm not going to ruin any more of the story for you. I'll just leave it for you to figure out on your own. Now, I've played the game on Nintendo DS, so I was excited to play this one as well and compare the two US ports and see how they compare to each other. So for the rest of the review, I'm just going to tell you what I really liked about this version on the iOS devices. First of all, I'm happy that Square brought the game to the iPhone, since the only other way to play it in the United States up to this point was on the Nintendo DS. I think the market was definitely there. I feel that the price point is good, and I know a lot of people complain about such a high-priced app at $15.99 in the App Store, but you have to remember you're getting a full-fledged version of this great RPG. It was $30 to $40 when it was originally released for Nintendo DS, and it still costs $20 brand new on Amazon. So you're really getting a deal for this one in my mind. The game is also suited very well for the iPhone and iPad. I love what they did with the control system. You can touch anywhere on the screen and a virtual stick appears. I really like this especially for iPad because it was just easy to play in any position I wanted to, and you can literally use one hand. Since it's turn-based combat, there are not a lot of technical controls, which means it's suited very well for the iOS device. Controls are usually a sticking point for the iPhone and iPad, with the touch panel displays and no physical buttons. But with this type of game, there's really no issues. The controls work well, the virtual stick is responsive, and it's not heavy action since it's turn-based, so you're really just playing with one hand most of the time. The controls work really well. You're also going to notice a nice graphical bump from the DS version. Now in my video it looks a little pixelated because I'm stretching it to the iPad screen, but I played this on a Retina display on an iPhone 4 and it looks way smoother than the DS version. Now the music and soundtrack has also received a little bit of a bump from the DS version, so you're really going to enjoy that as well. It just sounds more clear, more full on the iOS device. Overall, I think this is the best version you can obtain outside of Japan. All that being said, this is still a classic RPG with all the challenges that come with that mantra. So if you're new to the Final Fantasy series, this isn't a game that was made in 2011. This is a game that was made a long time ago, and you're going to have to understand that since it's such an old game, it will feel a little bit dated. Now for a guy like me who grew up with games like this, I feel right at home, but it's just fair warning to all of you. So that's a snapshot review of the iPhone version, what I liked about it, why I felt like it's the best version released in the United States. If you're a fan of the series, this is a must-buy. I love it, I play it daily. The best version of Final Fantasy you can get outside of Japan, and it's only a steal at $15.99. Check it out today in the App Store.